How to start a business without a plan. Welcome to Ben's Business Podcast, episode number 11. And this week I'm going to be answering two questions that came in over the last week. And that was from Zolt, he's in part of Ben's Business Book Club, the community of avid readers on Facebook. And what his question was is around the lines of starting my business and how can I give advice on that. Well, it's something that I've actually done for myself. I started a business, web design business, back in 2011, and I've still been doing it. Work from home. I've got a bunch of customer testimonials, and the business has been growing every year since I started it. So I think I've got some authority to talk on that subject. So the question was, when you first started your web design business, did you build the websites? Which I thought was a great question. I think what the real question is, the hidden question in that, is actually, did I need skills to start? Because Zolt's actually wanting to start a business himself in whatever area he's deciding. And I think that's really the main question, but I'll answer the first question. So yes, I did build the websites when I first started the business back in 2011. But it's a funny story how I actually got into it. It was basically stumbled into. So I'd always been planning to leave my work. Everyone knows my story if you've been watching or listening to Ben's Business Podcast for a while, so I won't go into it in too much detail. But what I done was I self-taught myself for my own website, for my dad's, to improve my dad's property websites, which we're already building. I'd taken some online courses on how to do HTML websites, basic landing page websites for building property websites all over Scotland to rank them and buy below market value properties, which my dad ended up buying about £2 million worth of property over that, doing SEO and getting them high up on Google, and he picked up the leads and bought up a lot of property back then. And from there, that was before 2011, I went and learned WordPress, because I knew that was where web design was moving into, which is a content management system. And I went to one of my friends and asked him to teach me how to build a WordPress website and give me all the skills possible. So I ended up paying him about £20 a day for 2 months straight to learn these skills of WordPress and how to add themes. Once you know how to do HTML, it's quite intuitive to move over to WordPress, and I thought it was going to be really difficult, but I managed to learn it within a couple of months, so I was quite happy with that. Once I learned that skill, I think that's what then I had a good skill of building websites and ranking them on Google, and I actually ended up getting approached by one of my dad's friends who wanted me to do a website for his roofing company, and that was just at the point when I was self-employed, so I had to make money some way, and I found out how much do people charge for a website, because that was the first opportunity I had with this new skill I'd brought. And I didn't even think of that as like a new direction to take myself, because I was just going to work with my dad on the property site. So I kept on doing that, but I ended up building websites for this roofing company, and then from there referrals, doing a good job for people, and built a business up from there. So yes, I think you need a skill to build a business on, but no, I don't think you need it to start, because you can always outsource those skills. And that's something I learned later, that you don't need a skill to start, you just need to start and find out who can do the jobs within the business, whatever business you're starting. So you don't need to be a professional in every area of the business, but I do think you need to be a practitioner of all the different areas, and I'm sure it talks about that in the E-Myth book by Michael Gerber. It talks about, like, there's accounts, there's marketing, and there's project management of the business. You do need to learn all these things ins and outs by yourself, and then once you've kind of got a gist of it and what areas you're strong and weak in, outsource the areas that you're weak in, that you don't have skills in, or that you don't have time to learn those skills like video editing or web design, and outsource that and pay a professional to do that, or hire someone, bring them in full time. You can get a lot of tips where I use this as a ultimate like business bible, a great resource, which is the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which has a lot of tips on outsourcing certain tasks. Just going to share this in Ben's Business Book Club so that we get some live viewers. Okay, so I don't think you need the skills to start, but it's good to have them and learn the ropes of the business before you build on the business. The next question was from Zolt again, which I'm going to answer, and that was, when you started your business and did your business plan, how did you write it down? So how did I write my business plan down? And similarly to the last story I told you about, how I started how I actually did start the web design business and doing the websites myself before I learned to outsource, because I'm now outsourced. I don't build the websites myself. I have a full-time web developer who builds the websites for me, and I focus on doing the marketing for my clients, and I build my own products as I go as well, and manage the business and serve customers and meet customers. So I really, being honest, didn't have a strong plan when I started that business, but I did get a mentor through Business Gateway, which is what you get through the government in Scotland. I was getting a grant, but I had to have a short business plan before I could submit for a grant to help me with funding for things to get started. So my plan and my story of like how I started my business is pretty messy. It's not pretty, but it did work for me. I had to make I think it was a 2-page business plan to submit to Business Gateway, which was a good reflection. But again, I used the 4-hour work week as a sort of goal setting. So I think the personal goals that I set through the tools in this book, on I think it was page 57, and it talks about dreamlining. Dreamlining is basically you work out your target monthly income, but you reverse engineer rather than just going for a figure. You think like, so if you want this house, you want this car, you want to do this in your lifetime. So you think about what you want in your lifetime by a certain age or a date, and then you reverse engineer it, so you then work out how much you need to be making per month. And it's slightly different from just setting a figure and then working towards that. And I think that's a great tool. So that's page 57 of the 4-hour work week by Tim Ferriss. And get these sort of, instead of goals, they called them, or he asked you the question of what excites me. And it's a great way to think of goals, as not just as goals, but what really excites me, and then work from that, get a list down of the things that you want to achieve in your life. And that's very exciting once you get that list down and you start working towards that, figuring out how much it's going to cost to do that. And then the business plan comes after that, because you have your own personal goals and objectives in place. And then the business plan can be, so to answer the question of what do you write down for a business plan, what did I put down? And what came up is the question of, why does my business exist? So what's the point? Why does this business service exist? What value am I bringing to the marketplace? Because there's already web design and marketing businesses out there. And my unique touch was the way that I can get websites built and get them to the top of Google above their competition in certain industries. So that was my main thing I put. So it was my unique selling proposition. And that was really the main part in my business plan. And you basically have to ask yourself that, why does it exist? Or why am I going to make this business exist? And then you figure out that value that you're going to bring. And then you figure out how you're going to bring that value, like the actual steps, and that's how you make your business plan. Another thing to make your business plan is more of a sales projection. So if you can work out that value you're going to bring first, then you work out how much a sale is, so you can do some competition research or decide on your price for yourself. And don't undervalue yourself when you're doing that as well, because the service that you're bringing, if you think it's valuable, don't undercut yourself in terms of pricing because the competition are pricing too low. So don't do that. Don't even go for the middle. Try and push yourself so you're more of a premium service, and people do like quality premium service. It makes you have to rise to that level of expectancy when they're paying a wee bit more. And that's my recommendation. It's hard to do that when you're starting, because you're learning as you go. In the way that I done it, if you've done a lot of preparation, then stick yourself right at the top, and you get better as you go. But what you also want to do is figure out how much you're going to charge, and you've got that value, and then work out, based on your financial goals that you've set through defining through your dreamlining that you do on 4-hour work week, you can then work out how many sales you need to make to achieve that goal in that time period. So that's a really good way to do it, is get the personal goals in, then create the business plan, and then get a sales projection of how many sales you want to make, and stick to that plan of how many sales you need to make this year, this month, and just kind of work it back from a long-term goal to the short-term daily goals. And you know how many sales you need to make today, and it really does help. That it gets you motivated because you know you need to go and do that today to reach that target. So that's really the main question I have. I'm just going to check if anyone's online and if anyone has any questions for me. So does anyone have any other questions for me? I'm happy to answer them live just now, or if you watch the replay, again, you can submit questions, just send me a direct message on Facebook or to my email, and I'll answer your questions for next week's podcast. I'm just going to check if there's any questions come in. There was one that came in this week, but I'm going to save it for next week because it could be quite a long question. So thanks for watching. I hope that helped. A summary of what I've kind of went over is, it's good to have skills to start with because you can build on those skills, but you don't need them to start because you can always outsource what you don't have skills in or what you're weak in. You don't need a business plan to start based on my story, but it does give you some clarity when you go through the process of creating a business plan. So I do think it's a good idea to have a business plan and a sales projection of having some sales targets for a longer term financial target. One we note there is make sure that financial goal has a reason for why you want that financial goal. That's really what it stresses in the 4-hour work week and the dreamline. And finally, you basically make sure you reach those goals every day, because you just fall behind and then you need to create a new plan. So stick to the plan and stick to the deadlines that you have set in there, because then otherwise there's no point in having that plan. So start without a plan and build the plan as you go. That's kind of how I done it. It worked for me. It might not work for you, but give it a try. Thanks for watching.